And so loss, withdrawal, and addiction. Again, we've explained why. The part of the brain that gives us the reward, the pleasure, the feel good, all the butterfly in the tummy things we feel when we're in love is just the part of brain that, in a general sense, is the reward system of the brain, the one that gives us reward, the pleasure-seeking part of our being. And that pleasure is of varying forms.
So in this long series, this is our Know Your Brain talk show. And for these last few sessions, we've been looking at the subject of love. We've looked at some aspects. We've laid the foundation of how it's wired in the brain, both electrically and neurochemically, chemicals in the brain. We come to this one now, which we think will be the final in this subsection on love. And we take the subject of heartbreak, rejection, why it hurts like physical pain. Even in the neuroscience literature, you find that these are aspects when they get to it, they have to touch on what constitutes the totality of a man. Because in one sense, man is an animal. Indeed, it's an animal. We're just higher animal. In the evolutionary scale, we're the higher animal. So we're animal, right? So we share the basic constitution of animals, only at higher level. They mate, we eat, they move. But most activities that they partake in, the lower animals, they don't put any value. There's no judgment to it. But we humans also have judgment. So when heartbreak and rejection happens and it hurts like physical pain, the question is, why does it do so? Where at the animal level, we can understand some of the explanation we're giving to the wiring of brain, the neurochemistry of brain, the electrical circuitry of brain should suggest to us now, I believe, if I made myself clear enough, in that the centers of the brain that control these passions are close by to the center that control pain. In fact, most things in the brain, many things are a situation of if one thing is active, the opposite will be there. When one thing is happening, there's an opposite of it that's only toned down at that moment. Okay. When you're talking pleasure, there's a pain. All right. And the center that's controlling pain, it's not as if the center that's controlling pain is in London and the one that's controlling pleasure is in America. No, they're actually close by. What just happening is that the electrical circuitry is so grooved and the chemical agents that also work on them are so programmed to make one to go up, depending on the situation, depending on the occasion, depending on the desire, the higher purpose, the higher need of man, the judgment part of man tells what needs to happen. If I need to eat now, the center that rewards me for eating smells food, the aroma from the kitchen tells me, wow, reward, good feeling is going to come if you eat. So at that time, it turns on the center for hunger or the pain pants in my belly. Okay, as I'm eating, the center of pleasure is firing, and it's at the same time looping back on the center of pain pants in the belly to say, hey, food is already coming now. What's your stress? So that one goes quiet. So the same way, when I'm in love, when I'm having all the great feelings I'm having, and I'm receiving all the pleasure, the reward system of it, from the reward systems, all the pleasure. There's a pain part of the whole loop that's being toned down. Like I said before, to the extent I'm still engaged in that loving relation. Whenever I think of the man, whenever I see him, whenever he comes, whenever he touches my body, whenever I perceive the odor of his body, there's a particular odor to each person. Whenever I feel his presence, whenever I hug him, whenever I kiss him, those are firing my brain center for pleasure more and more. That I have to do with love. They fire more and more. The more I do, the more they fire. Chemicals are also pouring more and more. They want to increase the taste of pleasure I'm enjoying. But I don't know, they're also toning the other one, say, because at that same time, there's the other center that is trying to modulate it, but tone things down, but they'll be shutting that down. So, and the reverse is true. If something should happen that begins to lessen my encounter with the person of my love. I see him less, he has traveled out, he's not talking to me again. I have less and less contact with him, either physical or whatever, virtual, whatever. Because the less and less the thing that's firing my brain will be activated. So the less and less they fire. And the less and less they fire, they lose their steam. The more and more this other section that was being shut down before begins to gain ground. And that's the pain center. So I feel the more, and if you get to a particular level when the pain one overshoots the pleasure one, obviously you can then, I'm sure you can understand yourself without me going further forward now. That it will be pain I will feel. I will feel the intense pain. And to the extent that the pleasure itself was most intense, of course the pain will also feel most intense. It is a reciprocal proportional thing. To the extent that the pleasure was intense, to that extent the pain will also feel intense. So heartbreak activates pain centers in the brain in that sense, in the sense that the pain, the pleasure parts are contiguous, they are nearby. It's just that when one is active, it is shortened at the other one. In fact, that's also the reason why when a man is in a state of rejection and heartbreak, you find that things that might easily elicit pleasure in him will not do so at that point. Again, when this one is active, this one will be lesser. This one will be overpowering this one. Except this one also now gather enough steam to say, hey, to force his way. So if you are now running to another person that is more beautiful than the last person, more prospects, more, maybe it's the child of Dangote now. Hey, child of Dangote. And I begin to dream for myself the kind of life I would live if I should enter into the good books of this one, study the love relations with this person. Well, see, that will obviously be a little, the reward promised me for that one will be, I'd like to imagine, stronger than the one from my undergraduate colleague in university whose parents were so not at the level of Dangote. So maybe if there's something now more purposeful happens in the pleasure pathway, we would not be able to overshoot and suppress the pain back. And so one withdrawal and addiction begin with then why the part of the brain that gives us the reward, the pleasure, the feel good, all the butterfly in the tummy things we feel when we're in love is just the part of the brain that in the general sense is the reward system of the brain, the one that gives us reward, the pleasure seeking part of our being. And that pleasure is of varying forms. It is the same as in for food, for music. Pleasure will derive from enjoying our music, favorite music. One will derive from enjoying our favorite game, sports. It's the same one way. It's just to the extent in which it fires. And the other higher center that determines which pleasure we are dealing with that. Okay. The part that takes all this pleasure is our vegetative animal part, if you like. Only that it is under the control of the higher center that tells it what it's about. So that part says it's only when it belongs to the higher center that knows, okay, this is about love now. That's where it knows that this pleasure is about love. And that it fires at a particular level that is okay for love. And it's that same part of the feel good part that we said earlier that people have manufactured chemicals to work on, to give us drug of addiction, drug of substance of addiction. It is when we take that substance, it goes to that part, touches it, the thing just begins to fire. That's at our, if you like, animalistic level. It's our higher center. Of course, it's our higher center that tells us to go look for it. When we put it on, it's acting on that part of our being. So it's giving all the pleasure at that animal urge level. And we're enjoying ourselves so much. And at that time, because it is firing heavy, the pleasure part, it's going to also be suppressing heavy, the painful part. Thereby, again, the analogy works. When we have cause to stop taking the drug, withdrawal from a drug of addiction, because we have stopped now firing pleasure parts, it is now having less and less suppressive effect on the pain parts. The brain part now since it's now being freer, begins to fire a little more and more and more till it reaches a level where it overpowers, supersedes the pleasure part, and we begin to feel withdrawal, pain, headache, all sorts of horrible feelings. That is the hallmark of withdrawal from addiction. That's why people get so terrible experience. And actually, it won't last forever. It is just that we're the one who kind of conditioned that animal part of our bed to take on that mode for that moment. Because many of the animal parts of our body, neural system, they are things that are actually conditioned. They are usually conditioned reflexes. Here, maybe I can quickly branch and talk about how it is that neuroscientists got to the place where they knew that most of the things that men do are conditioned, are learned experiences. So there's a famous Pavlov experience, Pavlov's experiment. The psychologists, the neuroscientists most know this. Most people work in neuroscience know this. The so-called Pavlov experiment. A Russian scientist who took an experiment where he had a dog that he needed to feed. So whenever he wanted to feed the dog, he would ring a bell. Whenever you needed to feed the dog, you ring a bell. And the dog will salivate, knowing that food is out. Eat. You ring a dog bell, you send the food, the dog will salivate. After a while, Pavlov then moved to the next stage of the experiment, will ring a bell and present no food. He discovered that the dog will salivate just by ringing the bell. So, because that circuitry was wired, it was learned at that animal instinct level, the dog has associated ringing bell with food. So it begins to salivate even though this time around food is not presented. So, no addiction, withdrawal, there was a time we were in love with that human being. There was in fact, sometimes the same woman being we suddenly today fell in love with. We were seeing yesterday, Wednesday, 1 month ago, 1 year ago, and we never had any affectionate feeling towards it because the circumstance didn't push us towards that. And so at that time, before we fell in love, if we saw him, there would be nothing to us. If we didn't see him, nothing happened to us. But from the day we started developing affectionate feeling towards it, we're laying down an electrical stroke chemical circuitry. Okay? And so the brain system then gets conditioned for that. So in the reverse direction, if we somewhere down the line cut ties with that person, the pain can reverse itself. Which is also why, indeed, people get cured from their withdrawal symptom from drug addiction. If they are sustained, supported, helped, other things done to them, minus the drug itself, to take them through the pain that they are feeling from not having the drug in their system. Down the line, they find that it's like, literally speaking, the body not being fed with that thing again for a while, get used to living without it. So, drug withdrawal, in that sense, is classically similar to drug withdrawal. But for that moment, because of the acuteness, the intensity of the pain, it can feel like moving on will be impossible. Well, we merely got used to it. So, we were living without the man before. We were living without the woman before. In fact, like I said a while ago, there was a time when we were not yet in love with the person. When we used to see the person, we didn't think our life depended on the person. It was because something happened to us in the course of our social, cultural, social, religious, social, psychological journey that we became bonded with the person. And whatever it is that got us bonded, now that those reward promise were no longer being delivered, or we got our mind changing for whatever that is in, and we're no longer relating with the person, it does not mean we cannot move on. We can move on. But of course, we know the moving on won't be easy. Or at least, if we know already that it's possible, we can work towards it. It's to think it's not possible that makes us think that make us behave as though life will end, we can commit suicide, we can. No. So moving on can feel impossible at first because that was a sudden cessation of a pleasure thing. It's like you give the guy the lollipop, first lick, second lick, you then remove the lollipop. That's going to be tough. Whereas if the child lick the lollipop to the head and has no more lollipop at that time, there's no ask. It is only when you give the child the lollipop and has licked a little and then there's still more and then you cut it off, that is problem. So the same thing, it's when the love gets cut short. disrupted, stopped, that I can feel like the war will end. But to the extent that we know, if only we still have a bit of it ready, or we go for support system, is that we have enough support systems ourselves to know that to have our mind rule over our mind over matter. If we have enough support systems ourselves to work it out, we will still feel the rejection, we will feel sad, we will feel the loss of that good feeling we are having before. But we'll just find that with time, the neurons are not firing again, the chemicals are not being poured out again, they are not receiving their cues anymore. Things will begin to taper out and we'll be okay again. So it's not the end of the war. So even though it feels impossible from your end, if you get a good support system, you can move on. And so the brain can heal. Only that what the brain will heal, some of the stuff addressed. The brain would then need a higher purpose. Because out there in this prefrontal cortex, the higher center of the brain that you need to occupy, is a place where critical judgments, values, purposes for living reside. That's where a man forms his own templates for life. What is a person's template for life? If your template is religious, the better. Because indeed, at that, let me start. If your template is irreligious, well, things can be a little tough. Man is not just a man. Man is whatever. Maybe I should frame that. Maybe I should step back. It depends on your worldview. If you are an evolutionist, you say man is an animal. The evolutionists say that. They say we're not all this worrying about this and about that. Just don't eat today, tomorrow, we die. Just that's what is it. What I tell you is that actually that is so flawed. Those are evolutionists. I am not evolutionist. So an evolutionist, imagine we will spot this topic from that angle. I say, if you have problem, move to the next woman, move to the next man. Just keep enjoying, having fun. What's your problem? Eat today, tomorrow you die.
Travel beyond limits. Nothing required from you except your bags. From Nigeria to zero travel limits, DigiFly beyond limits.
So, okay. But even that, we can, that's open to debate. We can debate that and see whether the person is really getting satisfied. Which is also why you have a lot of people who take that part, jump from one relation to the jump, and then somewhere down the line they come to grief. And then they say, I'm complaining. I usually tell people, oh, no, you cannot complain. You cannot complain. You see, it is that. So why is that to complain about? And why did this person not treat you? No, why should he treat you well? He's having fun too. He's also, if there's no higher purpose to man. But if there's a higher purpose, if you think man is not just higher animal that will just die like the rest. If you think, as I say in one of my favorite Christian authors, C.S. Lewis, that we're just here being prepared for it. We're not here for ourselves. So hopefully that informs the kind of relationship you allow yourself to fall into to start with. Okay? So the way your brain will heal from whatever breakup you have, actually you start from before you started relationships. What kind of relationship did you allow yourself to fall into? And when you were in the relationship, to what extent did you get consumed? What were the activities you partook in? What did you take the person to be, the mask? What did you take him to be? What did you take the woman to be when you were in a relationship with him? Did you think you were coming to a person who will be your angel? Did you suppose that a human being that's an angel that's perfect? Did you allow yourself to be that realistic in your evaluation, in your expectations from the person? If already you have a worldview that's already eternal, that looks beyond man's state on earth now, maybe before you enter, first you openly enter with some bit of integrity, a bit of honesty. You knew you were going to this relationship, you said you are of the age to go into relationships, you needed it, you went to it. But you went to it, even though undergoing some of the passions that most mortals go to, you still have enough resources, enough residual higher purpose judgment in your brain to be able to still be modulating some things. To say, okay, even though I love it too much, let me not go to it today, let me not go when it's alone in the house, you are still modulating some things because you want some things to be in a particular state, intact, perfect. So, and then if it then breaks up, you get disvastated, right? But you already know that it's really a human being. Son born of a woman. So really 2 years. It's food for war. And the heart of man is desperately wicked. And man, apart from God, is worse than an animal. Actually is a wild animal. The so-called wild animals are not wild, they are tame. They stay where they put them. Lion doesn't come to one environment. You don't go and build your house to his house. Snake doesn't come to your environment if you don't go and build your house. It's tame. It is man that leaves his own place, that goes to the jungle, says that's what he wants to build. He goes to the river where a crocodile is swimming. That's the house of crocodile. He says he wants to swim there. So it's man that's wild. It's man that's wild. It's man that's wild. So if you already know that that's what you're dealing with, then you will not be terribly, it will not be the end of the world for you if the man then behaves true to type, especially to a man to behave true to type, behave at an animal. It means he doesn't have a higher purpose to live. He's just behaving at that distance. So you know you can move on. And you can move on by then surrounding yourself with positive, affirmative activities, actions, people, things. You can steer yourself towards things that will make for healing. You seek help. You meditate. You stay in balance. You study the word of God. You think of things of the spirit more of the flesh. You also associate. You have counselors. You have people that were supposed to be, even when things were good, you are supposed to have counselors. You also have people that you turn to who are counsel with you. So now that you are in a mess, all the more reason why you need that kind of help. So if you do that, put yourself in a situation that, of course, we sometimes say, if you are trying to avoid a man who exploits you, you know he has gone after another woman. You know she's gone after another man. You're not going to now be taking yourself to the place where you're going to see him frequently. You try and avoid. I mean, but the more you see, the more some brain things cells in your brain will be fired. Cells in your brain will be fired because they fascinate him with pleasure in you. And then you see, meanwhile, you already know by your judgment that he has already abandoned, or she has already gone after another man, a richer man than you, or a more handsome man than you, or a more whatever man than you. So if you then keep seeing him, the more you see him, the more. So if you want your brain to heal, you try to avoid him, you delete him from your, you delete him from your, you put a distance between you and the person physically and psychologically and everything speaking. And then you then also promote other things that will give you, that will begin to activate your pleasure center in another direction. The more possible games that you enjoy, music you enjoy, activity you enjoy, sport you enjoy, profession you enjoy, activity in your job that you enjoy. You begin to do that, and then you are shared with people. Because friendship is also one of the pleasures of man that man enjoys, and also in the same place. So they said that you don't fill your days, your life with those other pleasure generating activities. They can help a person brain to heal from the emotional devastation of the loss of love. So as we've been saying, the brain can heal. You just have to fill your void, the new void you got that, with other things that can also generate the same pleasure feeling. It's because after all, what's this hot that you need to heal from we're talking about? It's the loss of a particular form of pleasure. Okay, that's now making pain part of the brain to be what. But now that you know you've lost that pleasure, without you giving free to the pain part to now overrule and make you painful, rejected, sad. Why don't you go pursue other things that also produce pleasure? And we have shown in all of these talk, it's those same things, if they give you pleasure in their own way, will are actually originating for that love, pleasure generating side too. So they will hopefully, if you like, clear out the one that you are lacking of love. So I hope this helps people understand their heartbreaks and those who may see go through it. And I hope indeed that even this prepares people for the possible heartbreak they will go through, because that's life experience. That's life journey. You go through it. I hope it lets you know that when you're going to love, they say love is blind, but others say even though it's blind, but still go it in with one of your eye open. I hope it lets you to go into love now with their eye open so they can be ready for any possible heartbreak which will happen. And that if this makes you understand your past heartbreak, please save it and comment and let us share your experience, and like this discussion, and please share with all of your colleagues, including some that you know may be going through heartbreak right now. Thank you very much.